The minority in parliament says Ghana has become a police state in which free speech is being clamped down upon by the executive, citing yesterday's arrest of Apostle Kwabena Owusu-Adjei as one example. Addressing a media briefing in Parliament House, ranking member on Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee, James Agalga, condemned the arrest, describing it as unlawful and unconstitutional.
Everybody is petrified. People have lost their voices because of the dictatorial manner in which President Akufo-Addo wants to adapt as his governance style of our country. All such attempts, with the greatest of respect, would have to be resisted and condemned in no uncertain terms. Only yesterday or so, we saw on social media horrific videos of Apostle Kwabena Adjei. He is alleged to have made certain inflammatory statements against President Akufo-Addo and the person of the chairperson of the EC, Jean Mensah. We don't support all manner of inflammatory statements that have the potential to undermine our peace and security. However, as a country that must abide by the tenets of the rule of law, as a country which adopted for itself a constitution known as the 1992 Constitution with a Bill of Rights provided for under Chapter 5, we think that the manner of arrest of the said apostle leaves much to be desired. Look, the arrest in every respect was unlawful. The arresting officers displayed a certain document which was supposed to be an arrest warrant. They never allowed the suspect the opportunity to peruse through the so-called arrest warrant. It was not even read to his hearing, assuming he couldn't even read. They were under an obligation to have read the said arrest warrant to the hearing of the suspect before effecting the arrest. You'd also see in those horrific videos that the suspect was not even cautioned at all. He was whisked away, he was not searched, his house was not searched, and yet in subsequent videos, you would see the so-called national security operatives parade the suspect in a manner that is unacceptable, in a manner that violates his human rights. Remember that Article 19 of the Constitution clearly imposes a certain presumption on all suspects and arresting officers to respect the innocence of suspects until they are proven guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. So we have time with that number, condemned the parading and display of suspects before the cameras. When you outcomes of trials, and yet that was what happened. He was spotted in the video holding substances suspected to be weed, and you could hear from the background the arresting officers making fun of the situation and making mockery of the suspect. These are worrying times for our country. In any case, what did the apostle say? The threats the apostle issued, as condemnable as they are not, statements made in isolation. The same prophet in videos that I have watched made similar statements in 2016, 2015. So what has changed? I think the government has chosen a certain path which is aimed at, intimidating people who can speak out in protest against the dangerous path they have chosen to take all of us. And so as the minority, we want to, in no uncertain terms, condemn and denounce the actions of the security operatives who effected the arrest of the apostle yesterday the manner of the arrest is condemnable. We also want to state, without any equivocation, that in recent times, a number of invitations have been extended to certain political actors in our country. It started with Major Boachijan. All Major Boachijan said was that the conduct of the EC could spell doom for this country, and that could ignite a civil strife in our country, based upon his analysis of the existing political tensions in our country. How did the security agencies under the watch and leadership of President Akufo-Addo act? They immediately arrested Major Boachijan, cautioned him, extracted statements from him. Next was Bernard Mona, the PNC chairman. He made very similar statements. Bernard Mona admonished the EC that the path they were taking had the potential to degenerate into violence, and that if care was not taken, violence would erupt at the various polling stations across the country if the EC decides to compile a new voters register. The analysis Honorable Bernard Mona made immediately landed him in the grips of the police. Ladies and gentlemen, the point I am trying to make is that there appears to be some amount of selectivity when it comes to dealing with matters of this nature. We're all in this country when the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP, Nana Obiri Boahin, a former Minister of State at the Ministry of the Interior, threatened that if anybody attempts to disrupt the compilation of a new voters register, they will be beaten up mercilessly and even killed. These words came from the lips of Nana Obiri Boahin. How did the state act? As we speak, no invitation has even been extended to Mr. Obiri Boahin. Is it because he's the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP? That is the kind of selectivity I am talking about. And so we want to sound a word of caution to President Akufo-Addo that his credentials as a human rights advocate have diminished. It's nothing to write home about, and that his reputation is on the line. Look, a lot of things have happened in our country. Violence and mayhem was visited on innocent citizens during the Ayawaso West Wagon by-election. As we speak, the law enforcement agencies have not arrested and dealt with any single soul involved in the perpetration of the heinous crimes we saw during the conduct of the Ayawaso West Wagon by-elections. The kidnapping, and I don't want to say killings, because so far as I am concerned, the matter is inconclusive. The kidnapping of the 4 Takoradi girls still remains a mystery. Our security agencies have not been able to arrest and prosecute the perpetrators after we were assured that they would bring back the girls. And so when we see the security agencies spend a lot of time clamping down on political opponents because people decide to exercise their democratic rights, constitutional rights, and speak out against happenings that are likely to plunge this country into chaos, you go after such persons because you wield the coercive power of state. That is a very dangerous development that we must all take very serious note of. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very certain that the reasons why officers who are supposed to be professional in carrying out their duties, even when it comes to effecting arrests, can no longer be carried out in a competent and professional manner is because of the recruitment of hoodlums and party vigilantes, faithfuls into our security agencies. These individuals, it is important to note, don't have the background academic qualification, to be enrolled in our security services, but due to their party affiliations, they are recruited into our security agencies. I've had occasion to address the media on this subject, how party apparatchiks have infiltrated our security agencies. We are now reaping the effects of the recruitment of unqualified persons into our security agencies. So, in a nutshell, procedurally, we're saying that what happened to the apostle is reprehensible, it is condemnable, and that no amount of intimidation would silence the voices of Ghanaians. We all adopted for ourselves a constitution. The president took an oath to protect that constitution. We want to invite President Akufo-Addo to make good the oath he took before this House. Even though we convened at the Independence Square, that was a parliamentary sitting.
Agaga speaks for the minority on defense, on the defense committee in Parliament. They're listing a number of things that with which he believes the President Akufo-Addo has not upheld human rights over there. He talks about the arrest of the prophet. And then he also goes on to talk about Wachijan, the member of the NDC. He goes on to talk about Bernard Mona, a member of the PNC. And he says that there has been a selective justice ongoing. He refers that particular one to Nana Obri-Buahin, a member of the NPP, who he says has also mentioned or made comments that were similar to those of the people who have been arrested. He says that it all boils down to recruitment of persons who are not qualified enough to be in the security services. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is on the ground in Parliament, and he'll be joining us to give us some more information on what has gone on so far, why we're here at the moment, what's all even going on in Parliament today. And when Joseph joins me, we'll get to know more of that. But Mr. Agaga has also been listing other things which he says government is engaged in a deliberate act to silence people who have been speaking out against it, and it's all in a way to cow the public, the populace into submission. He says, and you heard him at the end of that statement, that no amount of intimidation will silence Ghanaians.